Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for one of the first brand new busy webinars of 2019. My name is Trygve Olsen. I am the Director of Business Development here
one of the first brand new busy webinars of 2019.
BusyWeb, and I'm super glad that you are able to join us today. We're going to be talking about trying to figure out how you can fall back in love with inbound marketing. So it's going to be a fun time. This is supposed to hopefully give you some insights as to whether or not inbound marketing is a good fit and a good concept for your organization to join. So before I get too deep into this, I do want to stop screen sharing and show you that I will also have the opportunity to share chat with you. So if you do have the opportunity to let me know that you are here, and if you have any questions during the show, I'll be more than happy to answer it for you. Just go to the actual YouTube page, as you can see that I've got on screen here. Once you do that, over in the right-hand corner, there is a little chat pane. I do have that up on my screen as well, as you can see there. So if you want to ask me a question, or if I'm going too fast, or if I just said something that wasn't very funny, by all means, let me know. So, okay, let's go ahead and get started with our show. Let me go back and pull it up here. There we go, back to the inbound rebound. It is a cold day here in Minnesota, so hopefully I'm standing up, and hopefully this will be something that we can work together quickly, and I can get you back to your regular work day as quickly as possible. So one of the new things that we've been doing lately here at BusyWeb is we are charging for these webinars. The reason we do that is we want to make sure that it is providing you with the absolute best that we can offer. So we aren't keeping the money. Instead, we are giving it to charities. So this month's charity is Ronald McDonald House, which actually happens to be a BusyWeb client. And we are going to be giving all the money for your attendance fee today to the Ronald McDonald House. So if you want to find out more information about them, rmhtwincities.org is a great website to see all the resources. So if you're not familiar with BusyWeb, we are a full-service growth marketing agency. That means that we can take anything under the sun as it relates to growing your business related to the internet and do it well. So that tends to lead itself towards digital marketing, inbound marketing, web designing, and creating new leads for your business. So we are a HubSpot agency partner. We are also a Google partner. That is not a picture of me. That is a picture of our fearless leader, Dave. But if you're interested in talking to me, off in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see my contact information. So here's what we're going to be talking about today. 5 topics. Number 1, the new frontier, how we changed. Next, we're going to be talking about how the old ways of marketing don't really work anymore. Then I'm going to be getting into coming back to inbound and realizing how inbound is the right fit for you. Then I'm going to be talking a little bit about the flywheel, which I am just agog over. It's one of my favorite new things, and so hopefully I won't geek out too much with you. And then finally talking a little bit about integrating the inbound process with sales and marketing. So once again, if you have any questions, feel free and ask me something on the YouTube page. I do have it off in the corner of my screen, so I'll be able to see it as well. So here's what I wanted to start with, a fairly basic and brutal question. You've been doing this for a while. You've been doing marketing for a while, and well, gosh, people used to love me, right? But they're not so much anymore. Maybe the work you've been doing has tapered off. Maybe the leads that are coming in aren't as good as they used to be. But the bottom line is, what happened? How did things change? Where did it go? And why isn't the tried and true marketing efforts that I've been doing working? The reason for that is simple. It's because we as human beings really over the last 10 years have seen a marked change in how we work and how we do business. Let's break that down a little. You can see here in 1990, well, people worked 9 to 5. Your office had 4 walls. There was no internet. The way you learned about new products was going to trade shows, ads, talking to sales reps. Buying processes typically happened on the golf course. In 2000, hours worked, obviously that grew, and the office was a big cubicle. The internet was there, but some of the way that you learned about new products was Google, and you still talked to a sales rep or maybe looked at something on the phone. Whereas in this decade, you work whenever is available to you. Your office is kept in your pocket. Everything that you need is available to you at an instant. And you learn by new products by asking other people and doing your own independent research, which means that the opportunity for sales reps are even fewer. And it means that the opportunities for good sales reps are even fewer than that. That's because we used to use all of this stuff. Do you remember this? This was a time in my life where I like to call college. I had a day planner, I had notebooks, I had an MP3 player. Actually, I didn't even have that. I had a CD player. You had the alarm clock, you had a phone, maybe you had a GPS, you even had a digital camera. And that was great. And that was the height of technology to have all those things. And you had to carry them around in a backpack. One of my favorite things in 2018 was Adam Sandler had a song came out about all he used to need was his keys, his wallet, and his phone. And now look at that. Because that's all we use now, right? It's just the phone. Everything that we need is available at our fingertips, kept in our pocket. One of the things that one of the guys who works here at BusyWeb says is that everyone has a supercomputer in their pocket at all times. My dad used to work for IBM, and I can remember that when I was a kid, he had a big sale. It was 60 gigabytes of space for a bank here in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. And that was about a $5 million sale, and that was huge. And that was what we went to Disneyland on that year. And earlier this summer, I bought 2 phones, one for me and one for my daughter, and I paid $500 for 512 gig of data of space between the two of us. So there's just a massive acceleration of how technology has changed our lives. Even back 10 years ago, how we communicated? Well, we wrote letters. Now we communicate through sharing notes or through sharing things on the internet. Mobile ubiquity has even changed to the point where 10, 20 years ago, this was the height of new technology, right? A pager, something that had all of your information on it, you could get easily. But now, look, we've got different kinds of phones. Blackberries aren't even made anymore. And we've got iPhones, we've got Galaxies, we've got iPads, we've got different kinds of tablets. Similarly, how B2B works and how it's been consumerized has changed as well. Back in the day, this was a good representation of how business to business worked, where there were all of these different things leading to one thing. Now it's just Dropbox. Information is shared as flat. So life is easier as we know it. But the problem is consumer attention has changed dramatically. 20 years ago, maybe you had 4 points of contact. You could send them a letter, have a TV ad, maybe an ad in the newspaper, or pick up the phone and call them. Now, what I have on the screen here isn't even a realistic interpretation of what you could do, because there's just so many different ways to consume content. What does all this really lead to? What does this really get us to? And what exactly does this all mean if we look at it all together? It means that we're not in control anymore. Customers will talk to you when they want to talk to you. And when they want to talk to you, they will want to do it on their terms. I'll say that again because I think that's an important distinction to make. Customers will want to talk to you only when they want to talk to you, when they have identified that there is a problem, when they have decided that something has to be done. And they will only want to talk to you on their terms. So they will want to research you, they will want to talk about you, they will want to share information about you before they even pick up the phone and call you. And this is a reason why. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says to themselves, boy, I just really want to see an ad today. Well, I mean, I do, but I'm kind of weird and I'm in the business. So have you ever woken up and said, man, I really want to look at a billboard today? No, the answer is not. And the answer is no. So the traditional way in which we've marketed in the past has changed because the way in which we absorb and consume content has changed. So I want to break those down a little and talk about how the old ways have changed and how they've gotten a little different. So again, let's start with the last point that I made. Nobody wakes up and says, I want to see an ad. And especially now, when if you look up toasters, because you need a new toaster on Google, the next thing you know, Facebook shows you 16 different ads for toasters. So there's a creepiness to how ads are presented now. So the question is, why do marketers wake up and say, hey, let's make an ad. Let's put out a bunch of ads and see how that happens. See what works and see how it develops. The truth of the matter is it doesn't really work as much as it used to. And the ads that get put out now have to lead somewhere and are a means to an end. Simply put, the old marketing playbook is broken. 86% of the time, people don't look at television ads. I watched a show with my son last night, and it was a Paw Patrol episode because my son is 4. We watched in real time, and it was one of the weirdest experiences I've had in a while because I kept wanting to fast forward the commercials. 44% of direct mail is never opened. 91% of the time, people unsubscribe from email, and there are over 200 million people on the do not call list. What does this mean? It means that the 4 traditional methods of communicating with prospects are now actively saying, do not go here, do not share with this. So the world as we know it has changed, which means that our marketing has to change as well. As I said earlier, when you're looking for customers, it's not going to work out because customers will find you when they're ready to develop and when they're ready to show themselves and say, I'm now ready to talk about my problem and how I want to solve the problem. This could be in any method of possibilities. It could be on LinkedIn. It could be through your website. It could be through a podcast. It could be on Twitter. It could be asking a friend or a neighbor about the problem and seeing if they have any good solutions. Those customers will seek you out when they're ready. So we're going to start getting into inbound now as we talk about the traditional versus inbound. Traditional marketing and sales usually involves cold calling, picking up the phone saying, hey, I want to help. How can I help? Or sending a cold email. How is this going to work? I want to help you. If you're anything like my email list, you've probably got anywhere from 80 to 120 cold emails or an interruptive ad, that toaster ad I talked about earlier. Just because I'm looking for a toaster doesn't mean that I am ready to buy. I'm just looking. So stop bombarding me. It's kind of like if you go to a trade show and or like a home show or something like that, and you go in the middle of the day, there's lines and lines and lines of people who are just dying to sell you something because that's what they're there for. And you just want to walk around and see what everything has to offer. The reason behind that is because the traditional ads are marketer-centric. I have something to tell you, please listen. But that doesn't work anymore because the customer is saying, I don't want to listen. I only want to hear what I want to hear. So the way in which that works is by SEO. It's by being found. It's by sharing informational articles and informational things that show me that as a consumer that you're an expert in what you do. And it's showing that you're customer-centric, meaning that you know what I want and you are potentially a good fit to my solution. Simply put, don't interrupt what and when people want to consume. You want to be what they want to consume. Not an ad is jarring, especially if it's presented in a way where you have to wonder the methodology of how it was found. If you're presenting the right thing at the right time, as I'm recording this at 12:15, right in the middle of lunchtime. That sandwich looks really, really good right now because that's something that I want to consume right now. So the old ways are broken. How do we fix it? How do we come around back to it? How do we show it in a way that actually gets us some sort of results? How do we work in such a way that we can actually get our customers to do what we want them to do, which is to raise their hand and say, yes, I'm interested. That's where I want to come back to inbound, and this is how we're going to fall back in love with inbound marketing. What exactly is inbound marketing? I know if you can hear this, you've probably read something about it and realized that it's a combination of things, or if it's different things, but really what it boils down to is a fairly simple combination of things. It's content delivered at the right time in the right moment. So content plus context. We need to figure out what is the things that our customers and our prospects want to hear, and when do they want to hear it, and how can we deliver it to them. That's a three-step process. It's an important one, so I'm going to say it again. What do our prospects want to hear? When do they want to hear it? And how can we deliver it to them? Those two things modeled together tactically mean a whole lot of different things, but contextually means that we are presenting things when people want them to be presented to them. As I said, this could be any number of things and any number of delivery systems, but ultimately the most important thing that we are trying to create is content. And what exactly does that mean? Well, it could be a lot of different things. It could be being found on Google. It could be a great Facebook video. It could be how we advertise for jobs on LinkedIn. It could even be our RSS feed or a podcast, or even some tweets that we're throwing up our hands and saying, yes, I'm interested in learning more about something. Because ultimately, as people are doing their research, just as if you were doing research on your own for a new toaster, you're going to find the toaster you want that meets your needs. So our job is to be as consistent and as universal to as many people that fit our business model as possible. The way in which we do this is we actually build marketing assets. And that's the key word here, is assets. The difference in this between the older model is assets versus ads. Ads are a consumable product. Once somebody sees an ad, it's gone, and you have to pay for it. But an asset is a continually improving and continually paying off for your investment. Those are things like blogs. If you post a blog, it's always going to be there until you take it down. So maybe somebody doesn't read it right now, but maybe somebody reads it 6 months from now. Interactive tools, things like checklists, of which we'll talk about in a little bit. Things that are actually helpful, or if you're looking for a mortgage, figuring out what your potential mortgage payment is. That's an assisting tool that is an asset to a business. Photos and infographics are incredibly helpful. We are visual people more than anything, so actually showing a complex medium of photos and pictures and podcasts, things that are moving, things that can happen on the go, are incredibly important. And then even something that you're participating in today, a presentation or an ebook, perhaps a deliverable, something that you can give somebody that says, hey, thank you for your time, thank you for listening. This is where I want to provide you with this content as a way of demonstrating our expertise. All of these are assets. When I'm done with this, I'm going to save this, and I'm going to share it with people who want to maybe come back to inbound marketing, and I'm going to use this in a positive way. So when we do this, the value by creating that one asset is we create that thing, and then you can see it can be shared in multiple different ways. So the idea from building is then, from a tactical perspective, we can share it multiple ways and multiple different times. I read an article this morning that was from 2006. It was one of the most transfixing things I've read in a long time, and it was 14 years old. So the time comes when the time comes for people. You can see this is something that HubSpot created, crash course in visual content creation. They shared it on in an ad, they shared it on Facebook, and they also shared it on Twitter. So the one thing created 3 different points of entry for their potential marketplace. Here's one of the real values of inbound marketing. And I want you to ask yourself this question. Do you own or do you rent your marketing? rental marketing is much like having an apartment. It's you pay for it once and then it's gone. But if you own it, if you create it, if you make it, like a blog post, statistically speaking, over 70% of blog leads in inbound marketing come from old articles, things that have been up for a while, that have been indexed by Google, and then come up at the right time. One of our biggest clients here at BusyWeb is a building inspector, and he has been blogging once a week since 2009. So you can imagine he has hundreds and hundreds of different articles on hundreds and hundreds of different topics. And almost invariably, when I, as a homeowner, because I think I'm smarter than I actually am, will look up how to do something, I will almost always find his article on how to do something or information about that article. That's a great example of how, when I'm ready to learn something, it's there for me. And usually my wife says I should go call him anyway and ask for help, but that's a different story altogether. So conceptually, what we're talking about, though, is that having one thing and paying to have a blog post made means that it's paying off continuously. And the more people who look at it, those are, again, potential leads and potential entries into becoming a customer. Again, statistically, here's how this works as you grow your content. You can see that if you have a little bit of content on your page, you're not going to get as many leads, but the more you grow your website and the more that you grow the concept of providing more content at the right time, the more leads you get. It does create a bit of a hockey stick growth over 1,000, like my my home inspector friend, but there's value in continually adding when you're ready, because the more you add to it, and that's not just to say blog posts, it's blog posts, it's videos, it's content, it's everything under the sun as it relates to showing and demonstrating your expertise. So when the context is ready for your new customer and your new prospect, they're ready to share with you. How do we do this? Well, at BusyWeb, what we focus on is personalizing the content to match your customer. So when the context is ready to be shared by the customer, the exact content that they are looking for will match. And I'll get into that in just a little bit. So, but from an overall perspective, when you are trying to create an inbound campaign, you want to create the right content for your right customer. And I'll explain that in a little bit. The reason behind that is good context leads to good engagement. So I'll give you sort of an exaggerated example. There was an artificial holiday in January of this year called Artificial Roast Me Day. And if you don't know what a roast is, it comes from the old Friars Club, where people would talk about insulting comedy but it was all done out of love. So Wendy's Twitter feed, which is really just an incredibly irreverent thing that they do, and it's very, very funny, occasionally will throw out some pretty good roasts at people. So they were, of course, lined up to get roasted by Wendy's, who has millions and millions of followers. But the really interesting part of this, and why this is important, is companies actually asked to be roasted by Wendy's. So Spalding, the people who make basketballs and balls, asked Wendy's to say something insulting about them. And Wendy said, well, Tom Hanks should have left you on the island, which is funny. Out of context is really kind of insulting, but given the context of what it happened, is greatly entertaining. And both companies had advantages as a result of this. And it went on and on. Mr. Peanut said, hey, roast us. And Wendy said, congratulations on being the worst part of trail mix. So I kind of agree with that. I think the raisins are the best part, but that's just me. And Butterfinger got the sorry for always trading you for something better on Halloween. So these three alleged insults, independent of the context of which they were shared, are insulting. However, in the context of what they were doing, they were wildly entertaining and created a tremendous bump in business for Wendy's. So by creating that right context at the right time, it gets more eyes on you and it gets more people engaging with you. Here's a great example of this from a personal level for me. So My wife, recently, we determined that her 14-year-old car wasn't going to cut it anymore. So I started asking around and doing some research about how do we find a new SUV. And I even did some research. And I did an online quote. I said, I'm interested in an SUV. You can see I clicked the little button there. What can you show me? And a lot of things came up, and it didn't really ask me more than that. It just said, here's what we've got for SUVs. So what should have happened then is it should have asked me to provide more context. What about your life has changed since you need an SUV? What are the things that you need out of an SUV? And what would end up happening then is you can see that if you look right here, there are 110 choices where the one car I needed was part of that 110, but they could have got it much further down, much quicker. Because they didn't help with that context. What happened was 5 days later, I got a marketing automation letter that said, here's a great finance offer. But it's not for what I was looking for. It wasn't an SUV. I already told you what I was looking for. Now you're showing me something completely different. So I persevered. I went back into it. I tried again, and I went back to the website. And here's the company that I went to. And I actually bought my car here, which is why I think I can pick on them a little. Everything that I had done before was completely wiped out. And it just started me from scratch. The question I would ask for you is, why did they do that? Well, on the one hand, it's cheaper not to track those things. On the other hand, now I have to start completely from scratch. So of those 110 cars, maybe those 3 that I were interested in, I have to go hunt and find again. And before you say, well, that's really complicated technology, I'd urge you to go back to Amazon, wherever you're at, and you'll find the exact same thing that you were looking at when you left Amazon. So the technology exists to save your information and present it to you again. I did end up buying a car here primarily because of how they contacted me and how they dealt with me. But again, I was buying a used car, and what you see on the picture here, the picture is wasted space as well, because this was their new car lot. And I know you think, well, gosh, they always want to sell you a new car. But that, again, that's that clash that we talked about earlier. I only want what I want when I want it, and I was wanting a used car. So there was a lot to be had here and a lot of wind speed to pick up, that if you do inbound correctly and do it really well and rebound from where you currently are, you can get a lot of wind speed and a lot of great customer interactions. Even something as simple as the unsubscribe notice. When somebody unsubscribes from your email list, it just means, oh, yeah, hey, you're out. This is a customer interaction. This is a prospect interaction that you can do something fun and you can do something irreverent with. My favorite was what Groupon used to do, was they used to have this little video that said, we're sorry to see you go. Derek was the one who thought that you would really like to get this daily email, so punish Derek. Now, when you click on that, it just takes you and you do the typical unsubscribe thing. So you don't actually punish him, and it's not a video of cold water being dumped on his head or anything entertaining like that. But it's at least a little way to demonstrate, again, because it's another customer touch, that's something that you can put some culture or some relevance behind in an attempt to try and get them back. Okay, we've talked about inbound and how this can help and how this can actually solve the problem of getting in front of your customers. Again, I want to share with you how this actually happens. This is a concept that HubSpot created last year called the flywheel. So if we look at the old funnel, it's a pretty simple one. It's the one on the left. It is conceptually what they teach in business school on the first day, right? The top of the funnel is marketing. Those are the people who are prospecting. And as it gets farther and farther down, it transitions into customers. The problem is that doesn't really exist anymore, because there are 3 main customer points that you're touching at all times. How you market to a customer, how you sell to a customer, and how your customers are serviced are all as equally important, because your customers do not need you. There is a website that they can go to. It's called Google, where they can find any number of people to replace you. So how you treat them on the front end is just as important as how you treat them on the back end. And so the customer is now the center of the universe in the buying process, and the way in which you interact with them, the service, the marketing, and the sales, that actually spins. And each of those things are as equally as important as the next one. Here's how this works as it relates to everything else. So in the middle is that customer, and how you share with them is through your customer relationship management software. And those three parts, the service, the marketing, and the sales, are all the things, the three main points. Philosophically, as you go farther out on the funnel, you're looking at three different ways in which you do those: attraction, engagement, and delight. So if I can't attract you as a customer and tell you why you should work with me, I'm not going to get the opportunity to engage with you and ask you those questions. When I engage with you, if I haven't had the opportunity to earn your business, I'm not going to get the opportunity to delight you. And delight is that great customer experience where you're completely happy and completely satisfied with everything that I've done, which will in turn lead me to be able to leverage that opportunity by sharing with other people about how we've successfully worked together. So then on the final ring, you can see how that actually results in the actual old funnel. So the prospects are here, customers tend to come here, and then you get into people who are promoters. Those promoters are the people who are going to share your business and share your testimony, really, and share that great experience that they've had with you, independent of doing anything else. So when that new prospect, that stranger, comes up and says, I'm ready to go, I'm really interested in doing something, I have a problem that I need solving, how can I do that? Your customer is going to be ready to go. And then it all starts again. So these three wheels surrounding that customer are all spinning independently. And that really gets to the heart of the inbound process, because at any given time, any of these three wheels can start the process. And any of these places can start the process. So the traditional way in which we typically sell just doesn't really work anymore. That's because the three things of sales, service, and marketing are all working either together or clashing. So as you're thinking about the inbound marketing process, I'd really encourage you to read up. We have some great blogs on our website about the flywheel, and see how that can be applied into your business. I guarantee you, if you take the time and 5 minutes time to read about it, it will change how you think about things. How you really start the inbound process is here. It's by knowing your audience and really starting with the basics. What we recommend and what we do for our customers is starting with the buyer persona, trying to figure out who really is your ideal customer. What do they look like? How do they interact with things? And so you can see a couple of different examples here. Really, these are fictional representations of what your ideal customer is. What's their gender? What's their age? What's their level of interest? What are their goals? What are things that frustrate them? And then what are they really motivated by? By asking yourselves these deep questions, you can actually start understanding where they're coming from. When you start understanding where they're coming from, that's that second half of the heart. That's context. And then the content that they want falls into place relatively easily. This is where I recommend just about everybody start with their inbound rebound, is figuring out what your audience persona is. If you need help, contact me after the fact. I can be more than happy to share my insights with you. But start by knowing your audience. And then what will happen is you'll start to want to create a lead generation blueprint. There's the 5-point process in that, where you're attracting, converting, closing, and delight. Sorry, that's really 4. And you can see as the colors change how that changes the interaction with the customers. So you're in the attraction phase, you're starting with strangers. Those are things, people who are going to be finding your blog, your website, finding you through keywords. As you're converting them from visiting to leads, that's going to happen through calls to action, through landing pages, through forms, things like that. You're going to close by having great workflows, and I'll show you an example of a workflow in just a minute. But again, keep in mind that flywheel concept. How you share with them and how you service them as a client is just as important, because then they'll turn into promoters and then they'll become even more valuable. This is the lead generation blueprint we use at BusyWeb. So this is a free little piece for you to get. If you can lay out how this works for you in terms of your digital marketing, you should have this full scope and full spectrum of how this operates. And you can see the problem with just doing one thing is you're not fully addressing all parts of your lead generation matrix. So the last point I want to make today is, how do you integrate this with sales and marketing? Well, that really relates to just about any different conceptual concept, but here's some 3 basic points, because every sales process is different. You want something that has the sales tools and the marketing tools working together. The value in that is your sales teams only deal with warm prospects. Your sales team will know exactly what you're doing and when. It also means that more automated marketing means more efficient marketing. You can see this is an example of a workflow that we did at BusyWeb. This is part of it for, we were changing some email hosting internally. So we created a workflow so that we could help our customers achieve the goal that we wanted them to achieve. So this is one particular if-then branch. If they fill out the email hosting migration form, then they immediately get contacted by somebody. If they don't do it, then 17 days later, they get another piece of information. So it's created an incredible efficiency on our part, because we were able to set up this workflow and then let it go. And all of our customers, you can see right here, are in different parts of it at different times. So the bottom line is workflows and reporting allow for easy, more effective sales interactions, because the job is simply easier at that point. So here's the $64,000 question, as I understand it, is how do I know what this takes to make this leap? And how do I know if this is a good fit for me, and what's it really going to take in order to do that? Well, I'm here to help. One of the things that I'm going to send after the fact is a checklist that you can fill out to figure out if inbound marketing is a good fit for you. I put a bit.ly up here. It's 2SVEW. ZR, and I'll leave that on screen for a little bit if you want to copy that down, but I will email this to you after the fact as well. That'll take you to a checklist to ask yourself some of those deep questions to figure out, is this really a good fit for me? Is this something that's going to work for my organization? And it'll start by giving you the tools to figure out if this is a good fit for you. I think this is great. It's one of the tentpole parts of our business at BusyWeb, because we genuinely believe that this can be effective for just about any business. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you staying with me. Hopefully this was a little bit entertaining and possibly even a little bit funny. But if you'd like more information from me, if you'd like to ask me any questions, please feel free and do so. You can reach me. That's my contact list on the way there. And again, for taking part in this, I will go ahead and email you this checklist later this afternoon. So thank you so much. Doesn't look like we have too many questions on the YouTube page, so I'm gonna let it lie there and say thank you for your time, and thanks for attending, and hopefully we'll see you again at our next Busy webinar. Have a great rest of your day.